All right, and we are almost live here. Waiting for Twitch to get started. And there we go. We are live. Good morning and welcome back to Sunday School. And a little different, like I said, still playing with this software to interact to figure out how to get the whole. I haven't figured out how to actually scroll on the browser part of this, but I got it blown up big enough that you can actually hopefully read what's on the screen there. And see, I'm little bitty. Where'd I go? There you go, a little bitty. Um, still doing Revealing Revelation with Amir Tsarfati, and we are on to chapter 10 of his book, which is chapter 10 and part of chapter 11 in the book of Revelation. So before we get too deep into that, or even get into that, be in prayer for the Kepler family. Friend of the family just lost his youngest daughter. She was in her 30s. So be in prayer for them as they deal with that. And there's a young lady out there. I was talking to her mother, Faith, the other day, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Needs a lung transplant, like an actual double lung transplant. And she's running very low percentages on her lung capacity. What they thought was lined up fell through, and so now she's back on the waiting list. So please be in prayer for that young lady as they seek out a suitable transplant, suitable donor, and God will use that to speak to him and to give him peace and to show His power and His grace and His mercy and just His peace. Just that they would recognize God's hand in all of this, and do right by God. So be in prayer for that young lady and her lungs, the Kepler family with their loss. Any prayer requests, send them to me. Send a message, drop them, and make comment in the sections. We're here to pray for each other. And of course, you can always pray for me, and as I do this, and we get the men's ministry stuff going. We had Brotherhood breakfast this morning, our sheepdog group. Really good. We had farm fresh eggs. We had one of the guys brought in sausage from a hog that he had off his farm. They had slaughtered a while back, and so really, good victuals, good stuff, and good fellowship, good word from God. We're next month we do it on the fourth Sunday of every month, not the last Sunday, but the fourth Sunday of every month. We have our men's breakfast, and you're more than welcome to come join us, men, ladies too. As I've said before, we'll make them sit at a separate table by themselves. Not really. But bring your family, bring the kids, you got sons, you got grandsons, bring them with you. Let them see how men interact with each other without being stupid and ungodly. And let's get back to fellowshipping in church. So this is weird, knowing where to look. Because while I'm doing this, in the Facebook, I've got OBS set up to go through this. I don't know if I could tie Twitch in with that, but on Twitch, I have that going right next to the laptop. Before, I had both phones lined up with the cameras pointing at me, so it was really easy to know where to look. Especially when there's no one else in the room with me. But I guess I could stare at the little green dot on the laptop that tells me I want to look at myself on that side of the screen. I want to look at myself in the little picture box there. It's funny. All right. Anyways, getting used to the new technology, and like I said, maybe if I can get this figured out how to get it Twitch and get all this going through one streaming, all of the streaming services going through the OBS software, if I can do that. Or maybe I can find some other software that'll allow me to do that. I don't know. I got to find time to do it. I was trying to cut grass yesterday up here at church and got rained out. Football season, volleyball season. My daughter's out there playing her trumpet with the band, football, and then she's playing volleyball. And so for the next month and a half, 2 months, I'm very busy. So, but anyways, we'll get into this. All right, so we were talking about in chapter 9 the trumpet judgments, right? So we had the seal judgments, and then the seventh seal, when that was open, led into the trumpets. And the same thing with the trumpets. You go through the 6 trumpets, and the 7th trumpet opens up into the next thing. But before you get to the 7th seal, there's an interlude. There's like a break, a pause, and then you get it. Then you get the 7th seal, which brings in the first trumpet. Well, now same thing here. We've gone through 6 trumpets, and I'll read back over those real quick just as a refresher. We go through the 6 trumpets, which are first trumpet, hail and fire mixed with blood. 1/3 of the earth, trees, and grass are burned up. Second trumpet, the mountain is thrown down from heaven into the sea, kills 1/3 of the fish, and destroys 1/3 of the ships. The third trumpet, a great star blazing like a torch, falls. 1/3 of rivers and springs are polluted. Many people die, so salt water and fresh water are both affected there on 2 and 3. Fourth trumpet, 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are struck, causing roughly 8 hours of darkness, like complete darkness. No, very where you could barely see your face kind of darkness. It's barely see the hand in front of your face. A lot of people die, right? More people die. The fifth trumpet, demons from the bottomless pit are unleashed, right? The locusts we were talking about last week. I don't know how big they are, but they're going to be enticing. That's the whole thing of having beautiful hair, and being all pretty and stuff is going to entice you, and then they're going to sting you and hurt you, right? That's the way sin works. It's the way Satan works. Okay, so that's the fifth trumpet. For the sixth trumpet, 4 angels from the river Euphrates are unchained and kill 1/3 of mankind. Right? And I said, estimated number of people, 8 billion people on the earth. You lost roughly 2 billion during the seal judgments. Now you're going to lose another third. So you're going to lose almost another 2 billion people from this trumpet, from these 4 angels. And then the 7th trumpet. Okay, and this 7th trumpet actually we don't learn about that until we get into Revelation chapter 11, and then it's the second half or the tail end of that chapter. So when you get into chapter 10, you go from chapter 10 through chapter 11, and verse 14 covers this second interlude. All right, and I said that we have all this stuff going on during the tribulation period. And I've said before, we don't know an exact time frame. We know all this happens in a 7-year period. That's very well established that the tribulation takes 7 years. You have 3.5 years of peace, quote unquote, and you have 3.5 years of war. And while all this is going on, you have these great calamities. You have the seal judgments. You have the trumpet judgments, which are going to lead into the bowl judgments. And so it's like one bad thing happening after another, and you're going to make a choice. You're either going to follow, you're going to repent and turn to God, or you're going to just keep following the Antichrist and following sin and going down that path that's going to just lead to your destruction. That's what was described with the seals. As the seal judgments were happening, people were not turning to God. They were digging deeper into their own sin. They were digging their hole even deeper, thinking they were going to protect themselves in caves and places. We talked about that. So as the people sought refuge in the caves, I mean, God sees you everywhere. You cannot, you can't get away from him. He sees all of the universe. And so, uh, yeah, it's just thinking you can hide in a cave somewhere to get away from God. It's going to offer you some protection, but it's not going to offer you much. And so your best bet is to repent and turn to God. Now, hopefully you do that before the rapture happens, before the tribulation, so you don't have to go through all this mess. But, who knows? God knows for sure, and hopefully you will figure it out if you're not already saved. And maybe you can share that with your friends. All right, so far, John has been up in the throne of heaven. So he's in the throne room of heaven with God, with the Lamb, with everybody, right? And now we get to this point where suddenly John's back on earth. He's not in heaven anymore. He's gone back down to earth. And so we see there, and he sees this angel. So he comes back down to earth, whether he's standing on the ground or he's floating in the air or whatever, we don't know. He's just not in the throne room of heaven anymore. He's down on earth and he's looking at this angel right here in verses 1 through 3. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud with a rainbow over his head, and his face was like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. He had a little scroll open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and called out with a loud voice like a lion roaring. When he called out, the seven thunders sounded. So, big, giant angel. Amir points this out. So says right here on page 128, this angel that will arrive on earth will be huge. The description John gives does not lend itself to him simply standing on the shoreline, toes in the water, unsure if he really wants to wade in and get wet. This angel was standing on the sea, not just in the water. He was standing on the land, not just in the beachy sand. This depiction indicates an angel who's massive and reaches high into the sky. If there's any doubt in anybody's mind that there is some sort of God and that there's, whatever, it's totally erased now because you have this giant angel standing there. Can everybody see this? Maybe it's just for John's benefit why he would sit there and describe it if nobody else is going to see it. And it might even depend on a spiritual state you're in. If you're a follower of God, you'll see this. If you're not a follower of God, you may not. I don't know. It's kind of like what Tim LaHaye was saying with the locusts is in the fifth trumpet is that this was a spiritual thing and nobody's going to see him. Now, I don't agree with that, but it's possible that that's the case. If it's somewhere in between, then it's one of those things where the people who are not of God are going to see the locusts, which again, why would they be beautiful or pretty to look at? And they sneak up on you. They have these like smooth, beautiful faces, and they have the long flowing hair, and then and even a lion's teeth. I mean, when you see teeth, you might think someone smile at you, and this thing gets closer and closer and closer, and then all of a sudden, boom, tail pops up from behind and stings you. And so you're caught off guard by that, right? And like I said, that's what sin does to you. And so, maybe it's just those people who do not have the mark of God on their foreheads that are seeing these things. So the rest of us are going to be like, the rest of those people at that time are going to be like, wow, what's wrong with you? Or maybe everybody's going to see them. I don't think nobody's going to see them. It's just a question of who will see them. And me personally, I think everybody will see them. But it's possible that that I'm incorrect about that. So This angel standing on the shore and on the sea, will everybody see that, or will just a select few? And again, that's something we don't really know. I mean, obviously, John saw it, but and then it says when it mentions, let's see here, and this is the English Standard Version on the screen. And when he called out, the seven thunders sounded. Seven thunders, these seven angels, the way they spoke sounded like thunder. And interestingly enough, as you continue to read here, God says, don't write this down. So John was able to understand the thunders. John understood what these angels were speaking. Now, we don't know what they were talking about. A lot of people want to sit there and think that perhaps these were some sort of judgment. It could be the seven bowls, maybe. I don't. There's no indication that that's what it is. There's nothing here to tell us what they said, and so we have no idea. John didn't write it down, so God's like, hey, let's hold off on that, and that's something people don't need to know. And there's things that God reveals in time. There's things God's never going to reveal. There's things God's not going to reveal until we get to heaven. Then there's things on earth that God reveals as necessary based on his will and his plan for everything. So, like everything that we needed to know, God made sure Christ knew, even though he's God on earth, but I think his knowledge was limited to some extent because everything he knew from the Father, he told his disciples. Well, what he didn't know, he couldn't tell them. And when's your kingdom going to happen? When is this? He's like, well, I don't know. But other than this has got to happen, and this has got to happen, and this has got to happen. Well, then that's when these things will take place. So, some things are still a mystery and are going to be a mystery. And even after reading through Revelation, there's still mystery there. And it's not. Amir says this. Why was this called a mystery? To understand the mystery of God, we first need to define the term mystery. A biblical mystery is not like a case that needs to be solved, like what you'd find in an Agatha Christie novel or a Scooby-Doo cartoon. Rather, it's a truth that up to a certain point has not yet been revealed. The word is used 27 times in the New Testament, 4 times in Revelation. The mystery that has been pronounced long ago through the prophets was now being seen in its fulfillment. So, and I've had this argument and seen this in discussions, and I forget exactly what the discussion was, and they were like, well, what about the mystery of God? Well, this kind of gives some clue into that, and I wish I could remember the exact scripture. I want to say it's back in Acts, or it might even be in Romans, or something Paul was writing about. But again, as Amir says, when you come across some great mystery in the Bible, a mystery just simply means that it's something God has not yet revealed. So, in the Old Testament, it was a mystery as to who the Messiah was going to be. Well, obviously, in time, God revealed who the Messiah was. And, we're given his name, we're given all kinds of information about him. It's just, when does that individual come along that meets all of those criteria, that matches all of that stuff? Well, it was Jesus of Nazareth, and they rejected him. Let's see here. Which leads us up to, as he's been writing all these scrolls and stuff, and he's seeing all these scrolls. And we've kind of talked about this before. When you look down here at verse 8, then the voice that I heard from heaven spoke to me again, saying, go take the scroll that is in the open hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and told him to give me the little scroll, and he said to me, take and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. And I took the little scroll from the hand of the angel and ate it. It was sweet as honey in my mouth, but then I had eaten it. Then when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And I was told, you must again prophesy about many peoples and nations and languages and kings. So again, we saw something similar with Ezekiel eating a scroll, and the the basic meaning behind that. He's eating it. I mean, obviously he's having a vision and stuff, so this is a spiritual thing. But to eat something, right? When Christ says, "Take this. This is my flesh. Eat it." When you eat something, when you ingest it, right? When your body digests whatever food you eat, pizza, steak, whatever. Yeah, we had, like I said, we had bacon and eggs and sausage, and I don't eat them, but I made grits this morning for people that do eat them. When we eat stuff, our body digests it and we get the nutrients and whatever's in it, right? And that feeds our bodies, right? So when you eat, when John is eating these scrolls, it is basically symbolic of, it's a spiritual thing here. And he is having a deeper connection with God. He's fully ingesting God. He's fully and that's oh no, cannibalism. No, it's not at all what we're talking about. Christ wasn't some sort of cannibal. The disciples weren't cannibals. I've actually heard people say that in the past. Oh, they're a bunch of cannibals. You eat flesh. That's pagan. That's ungodly. That's unrealistic. And it's like the Catholics today, Roman Catholics even believe that when you do communion in a Roman Catholic Church, that the bread actually turns into the flesh of Christ and that the wine actually turns into the blood of Christ, because and I've seen all kinds of people argue about that kind of stuff. It has a spiritual meaning, not a physical one. You're not actually eating the flesh of Christ. That's weird. Just like here, John is eating the scroll, which means he now understands. He has a much deeper knowledge and understanding of what's in that scroll. And so, it's the way I've seen this interpreted as far as um, being sweet in the mouth, but bitter in the stomach. And, we all want things to hurry up and finish. We want to get through all of the struggle stuff. We want to get to the easy side of things. We want to cross the river. We want to be at peace and be with God. But like I said, there's the bitter side of this. And initially it sounds really super sweet that we're going to be with God and we're going to be in heaven and all this. But the bitter side of it, all of our friends who got left behind, who didn't accept that, maybe you didn't tell them. Maybe I didn't tell my friends. Or if you did, maybe you did and they just chose not to listen. That we're not in heaven yet, and we haven't hit the point yet where there's no more crying and there's no more fear and there's no more sadness. We're not at that point yet, because we're not in the full presence of God. There's still these things that need to happen. So when you get to that point, like I said, it sounds really great to be in heaven with God, and that's where we all want to get to. But what do we have to go through to get there? And then once we get there, what happens to our friends who don't get there? And so, that's the bitter part of it. And, is that exactly what it means? I think so, but, read it and study some more and look at the whole thing in context to make sure that you agree with that, or that I'm getting that correct. But that's kind of the idea here. When he's eating these scrolls, when Ezekiel ate the scrolls, it's just, on the surface, it sounds great. But when you get down to the bare brass knuckles of it, you know, the brass tacks, brass knuckles. Um, what's left that has to happen to these people is not pleasant. I don't want to think about these judgments and what's going to hurt people, and now they're going to die for their sin as opposed to dying for Christ. And even then, dying for Christ, I mean, like I've said before, if you think you're suffering now, you ain't seen nothing yet. These people are going to suffer far worse than we could ever possibly imagine. And so, let me see if I can pull up. I thought I had that up. Oh, I just have to pull up Bible Hub and look up Revelation chapter 11. Doing this on the fly. Let's see here. Revelation. Come on. It's not wanting to. It's probably running slower because of the streaming that's going on here. Chapter 11. 20. This is actually a really fast computer. I'm really amazed at how fast it starts up. I had to restart it before I could do the video this morning. And this thing, stop that. There we go. Okay, we'll copy that link. Copy. We'll go over here. Show this inside baseball stuff settings. Oops, wrong settings. Quit doing that to me. Browser. Properties. Maybe I just do it this way instead of all of that. No, we don't want to do that there. Damn it. Is my number lock on? Alright, there we go. Alright, well, look at that. Sorry, twitchy folks. One day you'll get there. We'll get all this tied together so you don't have to look the scripture up and it'll just be on screen. It's great if you got your own Bible. But if you don't happen to have it with you when you're watching this. Okay, so. All right, so Amir gets into a lot of references in Genesis and Isaiah, Zechariah, going into the mystery of God, right? The mystery of salvation, the mystery of the tribulation, judgment, and that sort of stuff. And of course, we talked about the eating the scroll. Ezekiel did the same thing. So it wasn't like it was some brand new whatever that God had never done before. And let's see. So this is Revelation chapter 11 I got on the screen now, which gets into the two witnesses, which he actually covers in the next chapter 11. So that is, and there's a lot there to that as well. That's, if you ever watched the Left Behind series, if you'll watch the, I think it's the second movie that they did. I know they did two with Kirk Cameron, but I think the two witnesses actually show up in that second movie. I don't remember if they did the third. They might have done three from the original Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins Left Behind series. They did a Hollywood version of it with Nicolas Cage, which was actually really good. And then they just didn't bother to do any of it because he wrote several books. I've never read any of those books. My wife has read all the books. Pardon me. But there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And this is, like I said, a lot of it boils down to accepting or not accepting God and listening and taking him at his word for things. And a lot of people during the tribulation are not going to accept God. Uh, they're not going to listen. They're not going to change from their evil ways, no matter how. And we all know somebody like that. No matter how bad things get, they retreat into themselves. Um, they don't want help from anybody. You become isolated. You go down this path of sin. And I said this the other day, and you hear it all the time. It keeps you longer and takes you farther and costs you more than you ever wanted to spend, right? And you get into the sin, as you get deeper into it, you begin to you withdraw from people, you isolate yourself, and it's like, I know these people who are abrasive people, and yet you can't get them to understand that they're abrasive. They don't have no idea that they are like this, and then they want to know why people don't accept them. They want to know why they're always having conflict. Um, and it's part of our sinful natures, unfortunately. And it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to say this in front of a group of people, but we talk about these tricks that the devil pulls, right? Well, one of several really great tricks is that he convinces you that you are alone when you're in a room full of people. And so that's what sin does. And as you get deeper into sin, suddenly you're isolated, you're by yourself, especially if nobody else in the room is sinning with you. And it's like, hey, and then you're embarrassed, and then you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to face it, and it just gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. And so your anxiety goes up, your depression goes up, you're not getting enough sleep, it's not healthy. I mean, there's all this stuff going on because you don't face and deal with. And somebody comes along and says, hey, look, this is what sin is, and this is what God says, and this is what Jesus can do for you, and Jesus can help you with that sin. He can take you from that sin. He can deliver you, and he can bring you back into fellowship with other people. Part of the thing with when we got kicked out of the garden is that our fellowship with God was broken. We were separated from him. And so we were not able to have that communion. We were not able to have those walks in the cool of the day, as Genesis says. And all of our lives, all of humanity for the last, I don't know, 5 to 7,000 years, however long we've all been here. By the Jewish calendar, it's at least 5,700 years plus some change. So we know it's over 5,500 years. We know that for sure. But everything you read in the Bible, in the Old, especially the Old Testament, is man trying to get back to heaven. It's not that we want to necessarily be in fellowship with God. We want to get to heaven where it's peaceful. Well, hello, wherever God is where heaven is, and the reason heaven's peaceful and the reason everything, it's eternity is because God is there. It's not the place, it's the person, it's God that makes it so. So that's the dishonest side of things. That's the part where we don't know and understand. We're that missing link, that missing part as to how we get back into fellowship with God, is that it can only happen through God. And so as you are reading through Revelation, and it's like, why do we have to go through all of this? And that's a God thing. That's a why do bad things happen to good people, right? Well, because sin. And truth of the matter is there's no such thing as good people. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So nobody is good. That Paul says that. No, there's no one good, no, not one. Well, good, the biblical definition of good is actually perfect. When you go back and read Genesis, those first 3 or 4 chapters in creation, He did this and he saw that it was good. He did that and he saw that it was good. The seventh, the third day, the fourth day, and every part of creation he did was good. Well, what does that mean? It means it was perfect. And it didn't become imperfect until man sinned. And well, oh, that darn devil. Well, I mean, the devil was the catalyst, but Eve could have said no. She didn't have to eat the fruit. Adam could have told Eve no. He didn't have to eat the fruit. Adam could have stopped the whole thing to begin with by taking her away from the fruit. And Twitch just died. What's going on with that? Sorry, Twitchy folks. But yeah, there's all these things that could have happened had Eve taken responsibility, had Adam taken responsibility, had well, that's really strange. It's and then when God comes down and says, "Hey, what just happened? What did y'all do? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from?" And the first thing Adam says, "Well, that woman you gave me." It's not that he blamed women; he blamed God for giving him a helpmate, and she's the one who started the whole. Well, Satan put the idea out there, right? So from then on, we've all been denying responsibility for our own actions. And then we've all been trying to figure out how to reconnect and get that back into fellowship. And it's, the Tower of Babel was built. Why? So man could try to get back to heaven and try to take the throne. What does that sound like? Same thing Satan did. He tried to take the throne. That's why God cast him out. And so, we're trying to do all this. Well, because man doesn't want to listen to God, that's why Christ had to die for our sins. That's why the tribulation has to happen. And it's not a good thing. I'll say it's not a fun thing. It's a good thing overall. God's doing it. If he wasn't doing it, there's a purpose and a reason for it. And so, I wonder what just happened with that. And now I'm curious that even saved it. It did save it. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad it saved it at least. So the bulk of the really important stuff is there. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get back into heaven, and we're trying to do it our way instead of God's way. Well, God's way, unfortunately, is the long way, and it's going to take us through a lot of trials and a lot of troubles. Because why? Because we won't turn back to God. And so that's what's going to happen during the tribulation. That's what's going to happen during the seal judgments and the trumpet judgments. And that's what the word says. And so, as we don't listen to God, we're going to have to go through more trouble. When you're a parent and you're trying to teach your child that, if you'll just do what I say, that's the easy way to do things, right? And I see this at work, and I try to tell these guys at work, look, see what I'm doing, see how I'm doing this. This is the easy way to do it. They don't want to agree. They don't want to listen to what I'm telling them, so they do it their own way, which ends up making it hard on everybody because it seems convenient. That's we like, oh, hey, wow, that's convenient. We should do that. But convenience always leads to hardship, and we see that in life as a whole. And we've had things so convenient here in America that, we're starting to face hardship. We've forgotten how to do the hard things. As you do it the hard way, it eventually becomes the easy way, whether it's easy mentally or maybe it becomes easy physically because you're body and your muscles have adapted, or maybe along the path of doing it the hard way, you've kind of figured out how to make it a little easier. But it's you do it the hard way long enough, it becomes the easy way. And I'm not saying we shouldn't change, or obviously God's saying, hey, you're doing something wrong, so you need to do something right. And you know we need to change things sometimes, but when you're doing it the right way to begin with, again, the right way may be the hard way. God's way is not the easy way at all. Believe me, it's not easy. It's not easy to serve in church. It's not easy to, it's not convenient. There's nothing convenient about getting up at 5:45 on a Sunday morning, um, to do breakfast, to do Sunday school, to do church, the days when I preach and teach, and the days when I do other things. There's nothing easy. Wonder where I am. Hopefully this has all been live. It says I'm live. I don't see it. Wow. Well, at least it's recording. So I've got this recording on the laptop, and may just have to upload it to Rumble and then share it. I did that last week. The last few minutes got cut off because the screen froze with me doing some kind of weird hand gesture with a pin in my hand. I was like, oh, hey. Anyways, there's nothing easy about what we do. It's not easy. I get up 4 a.m., 4:15 every morning to make sure I make it to work on time. There's nothing convenient about that. But it's what I got to do to pay the bills. It's what I got to do to keep my job. And so there's nothing in life is convenient. Nothing. It's not convenient, and it's not easy to clean your house. But again, you do it the hard way, it becomes easy, right? You get to a certain level of cleanliness, and then it's easier to maintain that level of cleanliness than to have to sit there and wait for it to get really bad, so that you have to go through and deep clean everything again. It's doing maintenance on machines. It's easier to change the oil in your car than it is to change the oil pump, or possibly the engine. I've been there, done that, right? So, doing doing what's inconvenient now will keep it from becoming a hardship later. And that's Christianity. That's living a godly life. There's nothing convenient about thinking about other people. There's nothing convenient about fellowship. There's nothing convenient about coming to church. There's nothing convenient about going and checking on, hey, I haven't seen my buddy in a few days. Why haven't you been to church? What's going on? Let me go out of my way and go knock on your door. That's not convenient. That's not easy, but that's what we're called to do. So as you read through and study the Revelation, just know that there is a way out of it, because it hasn't happened yet. So you can accept God now. If you already have, then you need to be telling your friends, and invite them to church, have fellowship. If they can't come to church for some reason, offer to do a Bible study in their home. Not convenient, but maybe got to work there and get something going. Maybe it'll be enough of a catalyst for them to actually get up and come to church. Figure out something, do something different, because what we're doing right now as a church, as a whole, as a nation, as a community, isn't working, and society's getting worse. Churches are getting worse. Why? Because we're not doing the things we need to be doing, that God says we should be doing. And so there we are. So keep that stuff in mind. Think about it. Figure something else out. I'm listening to started listening to podcasts. I'm not a podcast kind of a guy, but I'm listening to a podcast from a discipleship leader at a big church up in Birmingham. Listening to, for tips on how to do Sunday school and small group stuff better on our end. I'm listening to I've got a list. I mean, it's just I'm listening to these, trying to get these ideas from other people in ways we can do something different here because what we've been doing isn't working. I mean, this is I'll always keep doing this. There's 108 people in the group on Facebook, and there's a few followers elsewhere, Twitch and places like that. But um, there's I'm sitting here by myself in class today, and it's wife's running late. And I understand my buddy William, who's usually here, is working a different job now, so that sometimes keeps him from coming here on Sunday. So, and I get that, that's fine. But I've got to do something different to try and build this class up. And even with the 108 people on in the Facebook group, maybe 18 saw the last video. And out of those 18 that saw it, it means they clicked on it. 7 or 10 actually watched the video. And then I don't even know how long of a period they watched it because it's a group and not a page. So I don't have those analytics. So I have 108 people. I got like 10% participation. And that's fine. This is God's results. God will do what He wants to with this stuff. He'll make it go viral if He wants to. If He doesn't make it go viral, that's up to Him. And the people that do watch this, some of them are leaders in this church. Maybe they're Sunday school teachers of some type, worship leaders, people that really can't be in Sunday school class. It's very difficult for them. So they watch this stuff. And so there's people who benefit from this. And it's not just me getting to run my mouth. But again, there's nothing convenient about any of this. But we do it because we love God and we want to serve God. And we don't have to do it. But again, we do it because we love God. That's, you know, I'll show you my faith through my works. And so, it's do something different, get some different ideas, reach out to other people. Dave Ramsey would talk about this when I used to listen to his radio program and I was driving a truck. Industry's best practices. Find out what other people are doing that works and do it yourself. Maybe you got to modify it a little. Maybe you got to tweak it because, we're a small church, they're a big church. So it may not exactly be the same thing, but it's a similar idea. Either way, do something different. Figure out how to do something that works. Now, the Word of God doesn't need to be changed, so we need to do that. But as far as your approach to things, as far as what you do to attract people, again, keeping it biblical, but figure out and do something different because what we've been doing so far isn't working. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Y'all have a blessed Sunday. Be praying for the Kepler family. Be praying for the young lady that she would be able to get a double lung transplant in the very, very, very near future. And then when she does, continue to pray for her healing, physical and spiritual, and that of her family. So God bless you, and I will see you next time. Record.